So anyway, it's haunted. You're here with Kooky, Cannibal, Canny.
Canny. Is it cannonball or cannibal?
Cannonball, cannibal, Canny.
Okay.
Cannibal or uncanny Kenny?
Uncannon.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's uncanny.
That's canon.
Uncanny.
We need to start today's episode with an official apology via myself.
Oh wow.
To one Cody McAnally.
No.
An apology?
Yeah.
Why?
I had to break form a little bit. I'm sorry. I mistakenly, via Facebook Messenger.
Is it happening? Is this happening right now?
Called your own Monster Mac, Mongoloid Mac on accident.
Oh, man.
And now you know.
Wow.
And just to part the curtain a little bit, I think when I used to watch the show Eastbound and Down, there's a joke in that show where they call someone Mongoloid Mike, and it just stuck with me.
Yeah.
And I just revealed a little bit of the worst of myself when I said that. Yeah. So sorry.
Do we have a response to that apology?
Apology accepted.
That's so nice.
Officially.
He's fighting back tears.
That's so nice. True healing is happening in this room.
It's been so long.
True healing.
I can see him changing.
Yeah.
Becoming the butterfly he was always meant to be.
So visceral. Yeah. Welcome, Kenny, to our podcast.
Special
Finally.
guest.
Yeah. How many episodes? I think probably. By the way, we are double digits now in this podcast.
Yeah.
We forgot to talk about it last week, but yeah, we're 11 now. 11 episodes old. Eyes just opening.
Yeah.
You're experiencing the whole wide world right now.
Kittens.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I think we probably have mentioned your name every single episode.
Yeah.
So
I think there was one where maybe except for like a listener story, that was it.
I like that you're like, I think there was one. I think it's specifically episode 4 where you don't say anything about me. No. That's fine though.
You might see an anonymous review that says, hey, this one didn't have Kenny in it.
Maybe that's why episode 3 is so lowly rated. Episode 3 is the least downloaded episode, so that might be the one where we don't talk about you.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. It's doing wonders for my self-confidence.
Anyway, yeah, gang. So we have our friend Kenny joining us. He came in from the really cool town of Austin, and we're excited to have him here and talk about some spooky stuff. New thing for all of us, for the three of us, the 3 OGs of So Anyway It's Haunted, is that we just moved into our new house yesterday.
Oh, good.
24 hours ago.
Y'all, this house is beautiful.
Thank you.
It is so nice.
Thank you.
Ashley did everything.
You just walk in and you feel like you're in a home, and then you look around, you see the crawl space and the scary windows.
The fact that we don't have backyard or porch lights, so you look out into a black abyss.
And you just feel like you're at home.
You know that someone's watching you from the outside, but you can't see them. You can only see your reflection in the window. You know? But they can see you.
Listener poll. Here, you can go ahead and pause the episode here for the next 10 seconds. Why don't you take a wild guess as to whose room got to have the crawl space in it? Ding, 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 ding. If you're just now getting back with us after that pause, congratulations. You're definitely right.
To be fair, we 3, your brother and us, toured this house. And you're like, I don't care. I'll live in a box. I don't care. You go see the house. I don't care about it. And we were like, all right, cool. We all love it. And you're like, great. And then guess what? That's what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
what happens,
Chris
my dude.
came to me, his eyes rolled back, and he was like, "You were going to take the note correct."
He just doesn't want to have a room that shares a door with our room.
Of course not.
That's the only reason he wants that room.
Do you guys' door share a room?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, so many opportunities.
It's really weird.
Weird. It's weird. What are you
They're already-
talking about? That's weird.
They're already trying to lock me out. And
How dare they?
He was just walking around earlier, and he's just like meandering around the house, and then just walks into a room, like hands in his pockets, just looking around. I was like, get out of my room!
Boundaries.
What
Yeah.
a turd!
I was trying to quietly poop, and you were just walking in our room talking about something.
Oh my lord!
What's the purpose of
Anyway.
having a bathroom in your bedroom if
Yeah.
anyone can just walk in your bedroom at any time?
Anyway, yeah, you'll get over it. We'll scare you so many times with that.
we
with
put
that
so
crawl
many
space
children in
that-
that crawl space. You'll get over it eventually.
I'm gonna put fake spiders in there. We're gonna print out
Real
the-
spiders, real ones.
That
too.
real ones, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. TM.
Fake
we'll-
spiders.
we'll-
No.
Real spiders, TM.
We own all spiders. Everyone stop. Stop fighting with spiders.
I need my royalties, please. We're gonna print out a picture of the girl from The Grudge's face, and then do the thing where they put it in the wall tile. We'll do that.
We
It'd
didn't
be
hear
great.
any screaming, but we found the picture with kiss marks all over it.
Oh my lord. Oh my lord. Anything else? Anything we wanna?
No, we're
Anything
already
new?
getting
I
ready
mean,
for
yeah.
Christmas
Yeah, we're gonna have
Yeah.
a sick Christmas party.
because that's what you do.
Gearing up for Christmas Town.
the McAnally Christmas party. I can say without having been to it in the past couple of years, is still one of the most infamous,
Yes.
at
true.
least on social media,
Oh yeah.
hyped
Yeah.
up events of the
Oh,
year.
are we going to
That
make
is
a
true.
video this year?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I was even thinking of making it a music video.
Oh my lord. With what song?
Something Christmas related. I'm not gonna spoil it on the podcast.
Okay.
Okay.
AKA, I don't know.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Sweet. Well, none of you guys are invited, so
Yeah, please do
none
not.
of you listeners are invited.
If you
Don't
listen to this
stalk
podcast,
us.
you can't come.
It's a good thing.
You just lost your invite.
It's a good thing nobody knows my full name thanks to this podcast.
Yeah.
I don't feel bad.
No.
Anyway, shall we jump into it?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
We got some cool stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just excited to talk about spooky stuff.
Yeah. And
Oh wait, before we get into that, I will say that several times, still out of the corner of my eye, I've looked into the hallway and thought that I have seen things in the hallway.
But was it a fat naked man? Did he come with me?
No.
Well, rip.
It's unconfirmed at this point.
I debated saying this because of just the history of what Mac you said on the show
Uh-huh.
about closets. But
Yeah.
when you were showing me the little crawl space in your bedroom, it was the first time I had walked in your bedroom, and the closet is near the crawl space, and I thought I saw something moving in there.
Shut up, you did
Oh my
not.
God.
But then I looked, and I was like, oh, I think I just saw like
A
the shadow.
Sure, a shadow.
Right,
It was the
right.
wind. Yeah.
'Twas a shadow.
And then but after that, you slowly closed the door yourself. Like I didn't say anything. You just closed the door, and I was wondering if you were hiding something
Oh,
or.
no.
Oh gosh.
Anyway, you guys look out. You guys look out for Cody.
You guys.
Maybe block that door.
Yeah. 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 Nothing.
What
You don't
really
have anything
happens
to
is
say?
at 3 a.m. They try to block that door and their door, and they just hear
Oh no.
It's a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of the monster, but the entire time it's like, imagine you are in a new house.
Imagine if you will.
A man so afraid of what he really is. Are we not all truly the monster?
Wow, that was good.
The Twilight Zone.
That was really good.
Yeah.
Thank
TM.
you. Thank you.
TM on the Twilight Zone.
I got it. They didn't do it.
Was that
Stupid
what
idiots.
those brothers were doing on YouTube? Were they trying to TM? No, they were trying to get the rights to
I don't know these brothers.
not the I don't want to say the Wright brothers. Not the Wright brothers. They wanted to get the trademark. Not the trademark. I think it's another word.
Patent.
The patent for React.
Oh, for YouTube Reacts?
Yeah. The
Oh.
Oh, that sounds dumb.
I'm not gonna throw any spite because they have enough money to take us down. But 'twas a silly situation.
Okay.
Twas.
Anyways, I thought that was what you were joking about. TM, because it's
Oh.
like they were like, we're
No,
trademarking
No,
the
I was
word.
just trying
I
to
just
get that
react.
money.
Yeah.
No.
I thought of the joke once, now I can't stop saying it because people laughed at it the first time, so.
Rule of 3. You got one more.
Yeah, you can't say it anymore.
Alright, okay. Alright. What are we talking about this week?
So I've been keeping this in my back pocket for a rainy day, and then we spent the entire week moving. So I hurriedly looked up a bunch of information. I think I maybe over researched.
Alright.
But this is the Galveston Hurricane.
Oh, yay. I'm so happy you
Dude.
brought this.
Oh, interesting. Where did you learn about all the ghosts of the Galveston Hurricane?
I might have to do a separate episode on just Galveston ghosts, because a lot of this is just history.
it's just history.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Galveston's kind of like built on ghosts, basically. Like, there's so many ghosts in Galveston.
That sounds horrible.
So yeah, I got my information from Wikipedia and also GalvestonGhost.com.
Ooh.
Ghosts.com.
Yeah. All right.
Imagine if you will.
The Great Galveston Hurricane, known regionally as the Great Storm of 1900, was the deadliest natural disaster in U.S. history.
Jeez.
And this is how crazy it was. It is also the 8th deadliest hurricane to affect Canada. It just like went up the U.S.
Oh, wow.
and
Jeez
curved and went
Louise.
into
Serious?
It went
Canada.
all
I
the
did
way to
not know
Canada.
that.
Yeah.
I did not know that either. That's cool.
Poor Canada.
And it's the 4th deadliest Atlantic hurricane overall. The hurricane left between 6,000 and 12,000 fatalities in the U.S. The number most cited in official reports is around 6,000. Most of these deaths occurred in the vicinity of Galveston after the storm surge inundated the entire island with 8 to 12 feet of water. In addition to the number killed, every house in the city sustained damage, with at least 3,636 destroyed. And approximately 30,000 people in the city were left homeless out of the
my
population
gosh.
of nearly 38,000.
What? 30,000 out of 38,000?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Goodness gracious. And
The
then 6,000 people died.
yeah.
So, like,
So 2,000 people,
Yeah.
we're kind of okay.
yeah, were like chilling.
The disaster ended the golden era of Galveston.
Jeez Louise.
As the hurricane alarmed potential investors who turned to Houston instead.
Oh, no.
The Gulf of Mexico shoreline of Galveston Island was subsequently raised by 17 feet, and after this incident is when the Galveston seawall was erected. So before this time, there was no seawall. And just disclaimer, like, we all know Galveston, like, we've all been to Galveston. And
Yeah.
Galveston's pretty rough, like, it's kind of
Yeah.
made to be destroyed.
Yeah.
Except for the
Yeah.
Strand, which is like a bunch of old buildings, but like all the other buildings are kind of like, I don't know.
They kind of have a, don't they? They kind of like, they're built almost like, I don't want to say cheaply,
Yeah.
but they're
No,
built in a
it's
way
like-
that's like,
It's
you
like
know, they-
Legos.
Yeah,
Like
no,
you
they,
build
they
it to be
expect it.
taken down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
So in 1900, the city of Galveston, Texas was a booming town built on what is basically a giant sandbar in the Gulf of Mexico. According to 1900 census, the population of Galveston was 37,788, an increase from 29,084 people recorded in 1890 census. It was the 4th largest municipality in the state of Texas, and among the highest per capita income rates in the United States. They had many ornate business buildings in a downtown section called the Strand, which was considered the Wall Street of the Southwest.
Jeez.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I
Like
didn't
the
know that
Strand
either.
was
That's
such a
kinda
big
crazy.
deal.
I just knew it for the ice cream.
And the saltwater
the
taffy.
Dickens.
The big bear that you take a picture with.
Yeah, the big bear
every
with the
kid has.
candy. Yeah.
Since its formal founding in 1839, the city of Galveston had weathered numerous storms, all of which the city survived with ease. So residents believed any future storms would be no worse than previous events.
That's how it works.
In order to provide an official meteorological statement on the threat of hurricanes, Galveston Weather Bureau Section Director Isaac Klein wrote an 1891 article. Remember that name, by the way. 1891 article in the Galveston Daily News, in which he argued not only that a seawall was not needed to protect the city,
Lord.
but also that it would be impossible for a hurricane of significant strength to strike the island.
So Isaac like doomed all these people.
What? What does that even mean, though? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I can't imagine it, so it's never gonna happen.
Guaranteed he's somehow related to the guy from the Titanic.
Yeah.
We don't need these boats.
So as a result, the seawall was not built, and development activities on the island actively increased its vulnerability to storms. Sand dunes along the shore were cut down to fill low areas in the city, thus removing what little barrier there was to the Gulf of Mexico.
Wait, they cut them down?
Yeah, they removed
Hurricanes
sand
coming
from the edge, to, I guess, fill areas more inland.
Yeah.
The storm's origins are unclear because of the limited observational methods available to meteorologists at the time. Ship reports were the only reliable tool for observing hurricanes at sea. And because wireless telegraphy was in its infancy, these reports were not available until ships put in at harbor. On September 4th, the Galveston Galveston office of the National Weather Bureau began receiving warnings from the Bureau's central office in Washington, D.C. that a tropical storm had moved northward over Cuba. At the time, they discouraged the use of terms as tornado or hurricane to avoid panicking residents in the path of any storm event.
Wait.
Yeah, this is kind of reminds me of like the Chicago fire, where like this is the perfect storm
Yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah.
But not just like it's not that things are happen to be in place. They're like actively trying to put
Yeah.
people in danger. It feels like.
Yeah.
The Weather Bureau forecasters had no way of knowing the storm's trajectory, as Weather Bureau Director Willis Moore implemented a policy to block telegraph reports from Cuban meteorologists at the Belen Observatory in Havana, considered one of the most advanced meteorological institutes in the world at the time. This was due to tensions remaining in the aftermath of the Spanish-American War. Moore also changed protocol to force local Weather Bureau offices to seek authorization from the central office before issuing any storm warnings.
So basically, Cuba's like, hey, there's a hurricane coming.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, but they're Cuban.
We hate them, so.
Yeah. So Isaac Klein, remember that guy? He claimed that he took it upon himself to travel along the beach and other low-lying areas, warning people personally of the storm's approach. These reports by Klein and his brother, Galveston meteorologist Joseph L. Klein, have been called into question in recent years as no other survivors corroborated these accounts.
Oh, Lord.
In fact, Klein's role in the disaster is a subject of some controversy. Supporters point to Klein's issuing a hurricane warning without permission from the Border Bureau's central office. Detractors, including author Eric Larson, point to Klein's earlier insistence that a seawall was unnecessary and his belief that an intense hurricane could not strike the island.
I don't want to get political, but he just sounds so much like Trump.
Yeah.
He just really, like he's just like, I can't he's like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Well, how would that even happen?
You
I
can't,
don't understand it, so
you
it
can't
won't
leave
happen.
a trail of receipts and then get upset when people bring them to you.
Yeah.
You said this,
just
bro.
his incompetence, total. I don't want to get political, but it just sounds like how Trump talks.
Yeah.
And then how he like backtracks
like
on
in
things.
absolutes. Like,
Yeah.
this will
Yeah.
definitely not
Yeah,
happen.
yeah.
And there's like, it doesn't sound like there's much research or anything
Yeah.
to back it up.
But what's the difference between a storm and a hurricane? It's an opinion.
It's true. Heavy rainfall fell in Cuba in association with the storm, including up to 12.58 inches in a 24-hour period in the city of Santiago de Cuba. The city experienced its worst weather since 1877. So the hurricane made landfall in Galveston on September 9th, 1900. It had estimated winds of 145 miles per hour,
Oh my Lord.
making it a Cat 4 storm.
Wow.
The first train to reach Galveston left Houston on the morning of September 8th at 9:45 a.m. It found the tracks washed out, and the passengers were forced to transfer to a relief train on parallel tracks to complete their journey. Even then, debris on the track slowed the train's progress to a crawl. The 95 travelers on the train from Beaumont found themselves at the Bolivar Peninsula waiting for the ferry that would carry them, train and all, to the island. When it arrived, the high seas forced the ferry captain to give up on his attempt to dock. The train crew attempted to return the way they had come, but rising water blocked the train's path. 10 refugees from the Beaumont train sought shelter at the Point Bolivar lighthouse.
Hold on. So they were on this train going to Galveston.
Yeah.
They couldn't get there on the track because it was washed out. So they thought, let's keep going.
They really need to get to Galveston.
So let's get onto a different train going the same direction.
Yeah.
And then when the waters were rising, they still thought, oh man, we need to get to this storm.
Yeah.
Like, we have to go to it.
Yeah.
I've never been so desperate to be in a hurricane in my life.
Go somewhere?
Yeah. Some people are just like that. Like, they just drive in a hurricane. Like, they need to be somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, then you kind of die sometimes.
Sometimes, man.
Yeah. So 10
Sad.
refugees left the train and went to the lighthouse with 200 residents of Port Bolivar who were already there. The 85 who stayed with the train died when the storm surge overran the tops of the cars. So, at the time of the 1900 hurricane, the highest point in the city of Galveston was only 8.7 feet above sea level. The hurricane brought with it a storm surge of over 15 feet that washed over the entire island.
Oh my gosh.
The surge knocked buildings off their foundations, and the surf pounded them to pieces. Over 3,600 homes were destroyed, and a wall of debris faced the ocean. The few buildings that survived, mostly solidly but built mansions and houses along the Strand District, are today maintained as tourist attractions. Because of the destruction of the bridges to the mainland and the telegraph lines, no word of the city's destruction was able to reach the mainland. At 11 a.m. on September 9th, one of the few ships at the Galveston wharfs to survive the storm, the Ferriby, arrived in Texas City on the western side of Galveston Bay. It carried 6 messengers from the city. When they reached the telegraph offices in Houston at 3 a.m. on September 10th, a short message was sent to Texas Governor Joseph D. Sayers and U.S. President William McKinley. The message was, "I have been deputized by the mayor and Citizens Committee of Galveston to inform you that the city of Galveston is in ruins."
Yeah, the city of Galveston no longer
is
exists.
no more. The message reported an estimated 500 dead. At the time, this was considered to be a large exaggeration.
Oh man.
Wow.
Yeah. So the citizens.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. The citizens of Houston had prepared to provide assistance. The workers set out by rail and ship for the island almost immediately. This is where it gets like super dark and creepy. Rescuers arrived to find the city completely destroyed. It is believed 8,000 people, 20% of the island's population, had lost their lives. Estimated range is, well, yes, it's ranges from 6,000 to 12,000. I guess they don't really have an exact number. Most had drowned or been crushed as the waves pounded the debris that had been their homes hours earlier. Many survived the storm itself, but died after several days of being trapped under wreckage of the city. With rescuers unable to reach them. The rescuers could hear the screams of the survivors as they walked on the debris, trying to rescue those they could. The dead bodies were so numerous that burying all of them was impossible.
No, please don't tell me they did a mass grave.
No, the dead were initially weighted down on barges and dumped at sea.
They just put the dead people...
Yeah, but
Dude.
when the Gulf currents washed many of the bodies back onto the beach,
Dude.
a new solution was needed.
Yeah.
Funeral pyres were set up on the beaches or wherever dead bodies were found and burned day and night for several weeks after the storm. The authorities passed out... This is crazy. The authorities passed out free whiskey to sustain the distraught men conscripted for the gruesome work of collecting and burning the dead. Let's see. The storm was the third highest number of deaths or injuries of all Atlantic hurricanes. So by comparison, the second most deadly U.S. hurricane was the San Sirico hurricane in 1899. And the fatalities only reached 3,400.
Only.
Yeah, so the Galveston hurricane is the most deadly by at least
Yeah.
By a
double.
lot, and it sounds like there were a
Yeah.
lot of things
At
that
the-
contributed to that.
Yeah.
Right, of course.
Yeah, and the third most deadly was Hurricane Maria in 2017, with fatalities estimated around 2,982.
Really?
Yeah. Let's see. All right, so here's some creepy places. This first one, is not really hurricane related, although it is a large mansion that survived the hurricane. So it's called the Ashton Villa. It's constructed of brick and cast iron. The mansion was one of the very few homes to survive the Great Storm. During the hurricane, the Browns, who owned the house, opened the front door of the mansion and allowed the floodwaters to flow all the way through the home, exiting out the back door so that the home would not be pushed by the waters and possibly damaged.
Interesting.
It's sometimes called the most haunted building in America, mostly due to its most notorious resident, Miss Betty Brown. Betty Brown grew up in an atmosphere of abundance of wealth, material goods, and extreme privilege. She was referred to by many during her time as the Texas Princess. Miss Betty loved to travel, find adventure, and was considered a free spirit who had absolutely no desire to get married, have children, or settle down. She spent most of her time collecting beautifully expensive objects and hosting grand parties.
Yes.
Man.
Yeah, so she seems pretty cool. The ghost of Betty Brown.
She's alright.
She knew what was going on.
The ghost of Betty Brown has been seen standing in the Gold Room, standing at the top of the staircase, and heard playing the piano at one of her famous music recitals. People on tour. What? No.
When? What was it? Are you here to say something?
Crawlspace?
Oh my lord.
People on tours have reported feeling a presence joining them on the tour. A chest of drawers purchased in the Middle East stands in Betty Brown's day room. It reportedly locks and unlocks spontaneously, even though the key has been missing for years.
I'm sorry, but I'm sure what they mean is just that they're like, I could have swore a minute ago this was unlocked. But the way I see it, the way you're telling it's just like, like locking and unlocking. What could this be? Magnets. Go ahead.
How do they work?
Ceiling fans have been known to turn themselves on. One bed refuses to stay made. No matter how many times a day the sheets are straightened, they end up rumpled anyway.
Whose bed is that?
Yeah.
Who's making? Is it like a kid? Like,
Did you
I did make it. I promise.
did you mess with his bed? No. Betty.
It's in the name.
The day room, incidentally, was the only room where Betty could go without wearing her stays. I don't know what that means. She apparently spent a lot of time there. The top of the staircase where Betty's ghost has been seen leads to the day room. And here's some accounts of...
And here's
Ghosts.
Betty.
She's been in the green room listening the whole time.
One of the Ashton Villa tour guides reports that she saw a beautiful golden-haired woman in a turquoise evening gown holding an ornate fan standing on the second floor landing. This is suspected to be Betty Brown. Lucy Testa, who was a former manager of the Ashton Villa, she states that on February 18th of 1991, the mansion's alarm went off without cause. Later that same day she closed the mansion, she noticed the ceiling fan was on at the top of the stairs. She turned it off, but the next morning she found the fan on again. She later discovered this date, February 18th, was Mrs. Betty's birthday. A caretaker residing in the carriage house was awakened by a sound asleep by the sound of a piano playing. Fearing a break-in, he went to investigate. The music was coming from the gold room. Expecting to confront a burglar or a vandal, he quietly slipped into the room. There at the piano, he saw the faint image of a woman in 19th century attire. A mere moment later, both the figure and the music faded. The caretaker was later quoted as saying that he turned on every light in the house and remained awake for the rest of the night.
Can you imagine though, like, it's just you and you
Yes.
wake up and everything is silent, except in the distance you can hear a piano playing, and you know you're the only one in the house.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense that someone would break in and play the piano.
Yeah.
That makes no
Yeah.
sense. But you're like, it's a break-in. It's got to be a break-in. Someone's breaking in the house. I got to go see what it is. I got to go stop them.
Yeah.
You know it's not a
If
break-in,
they're
my dude.
playing it well, I invite it.
Just go back
I mean,
to sleep
look,
and
I'm
enjoy
just
it.
saying, like, if it's like, you know, like, then yeah, I'm gonna be like,
What is scarier, though? Waking up to someone banging on a piano or waking up to, like, perfect piano playing?
man, they dedicated time to learn that. I
That's
respect.
just-
Respect.
yeah. You gotta respect the artist at work.
It's true.
Okay. All right.
No, I would be very I would not have slipped into the room. That would not
Yeah,
have been
that's,
my
I mean,
instinct.
that's,
I would've
that's
slipped
first
out
and
of the
foremost.
house.
Yeah, I would have left the house.
Civil War era soldiers have been seen by staff both inside and outside of the house. During the Civil War, the Ashton Villa was also used as a hospital for Confederate soldiers. There were rumors of marching soldiers moving through the house and on the grounds.
What are you doing in Galveston during the Civil War? That's as far south and off the land as you can get.
A lot of the ghosts I noticed that I was reading up on, a lot of them are Civil War related.
Well, it's a port city, so maybe like.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess
Things
that.
by ship?
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
true.
And in the middle of all that, there's just this rich woman who's just throwing parties, like
True.
a female Gatsby. I
As
love
they
it.
do.
Yeah.
As they do.
So Tilly Brown is actually believed to be responsible for the piano music that is often heard coming from the house after hours, because Miss Betty Brown never learned to play the piano. No. However, Tilly Brown was something of an accomplished pianist who enjoyed entertaining friends, family, and her children. So the last one I'm going to talk about is the Seawall Walmart,
What?
which is kind of weird. It's kind of weird
Wait,
space.
have we been there before? We've been there before.
I've definitely been there.
We've
I've been to the
I've
Walmart.
been to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Walmart.
Yeah.
We've all been to that Walmart. So
But you've been to any Walmart after midnight. It's pretty scary.
True.
True. Yeah.
I mean, I do remember feeling a lot of negative energy when I walked in there.
It was all the
security
shell
I
art,
was very
wasn't it?
stressed out,
Yeah.
very ashamed that I was even shopping at a Walmart.
Yeah.
So
The security guard at midnight told me to go away, and that it was just a really negative experience.
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, Walmart's
Sorry you
the
experienced
Galveston Walmart closes," and he was like, "Yes."
And then he faded.
wait, was this real? Did this really happen?
Yeah, I was at a convention.
Oh, I thought you were
and
just
was
making that up.
This was the time that I went to dye my hair, and I accidentally stained the bathtub, so I was desperate to get bleach. And I
Yeah.
was like, "Walmart's always open," and there's a security guard, and he was like, "What are you doing here?" I was like,
Not this
it's,
one, boy.
It's Walmart," and he's like, "No."
And he rolled
What
away
are
on
you
his
doing
Segway.
here?
He said, "We're closed," and he like opened his mouth, and light shot out, and
Oh Lord!
he exploded into smoke.
And then you bought your bleach and went home.
Yeah, then I went. It turns out they're not closed. I don't know who that was.
Yeah.
That was weird.
All right. So rewind to when we took that ghost tour, Nightly Spirits.
Nightly Spirits.
Do you remember
Johnny was awesome.
the story about the artifacts taken to the spaghetti warehouse?
Yes.
This the Seawall Walmart is the old site of the St. Mary's Orphan Asylum.
Are you serious?
Yes. Yes.
That's not good.
Yeah.
So
All of the
Go.
consumerism is cursing us.
Yeah.
go ahead.
Okay, so Walmart employees have been reporting misplaced toys, missing pallets of toy inventory, phantom children's laughter, and cries for parents. So there are multiple accounts of like employees walking down the toy aisle looking for a crying child, and every time they walk down the aisle, it always sounds like it's one aisle away, and they can never find it.
This is
It's
so horrible.
Yeah.
Also, how sad is it that it's not like poltergeist activity where it's just
Yeah.
like a random thing. It's toys.
Yeah.
They're very specifically
Children's
seeking out
toys.
toys.
Yeah.
Yes, you're hearing a child laugh. You're hearing a child cry. Oh man.
My
Yeah.
parents both used to work at Walmart, and they would sit like my dad would work the night shift, and he hated cleaning the children's area because it was just like it seemed creepy at
Oh, yeah.
nighttime when there's
Really?
no kids there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't like that. And then
so
if there
weird.
was a kid there at like 3 in the morning,
Yeah.
It's like, what is this kid doing
Yeah,
here
yeah.
at 3 in the morning?
It's all wrong.
Yeah.
All of it is wrong.
No matter
Yeah.
what, it's not comfortable.
Okay. So, of the number of dead in the hurricane of 1900, 10 of them were nuns of the orphanage, and 90 of them were children from the St. Mary's Orphan Asylum.
90?
Yeah. The sisters were called to Galveston by Catholic Bishop Claude M. Dubious in 1866, or Dubuis? I don't know.
Dubois.
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 Dubious.
Da boy.
Dubois. To care
We
for
don't
the,
do that here. It's not this podcast.
So they were called in to care for many and sick and They were called to care for the many sick and infirm in what was the major port of entry for Texas. They were also charged with caring for orphan children, most of whom had lost parents during yellow fever epidemics.
Honey.
At first, the Sisters of Charity opened an orphanage within the hospital, but later moved it 3 miles to the west on beachfront property on the former estate of Captain Farnefalia Green. Beginning early on the morning of Saturday, September 8th, 1990, the winds began coming in
Wait,
strongly.
1890?
1900. Whoops, sorry.
Oh, okay. It was like 1990.
September 8th, 1900.
Okay, got you.
The winds began coming in strongly from the north, despite the opposing winds. The tides of the southern Gulf waters also rose, sending large crashing waves upon the beachfront. Sister Elizabeth Ryan, one of the 10 sisters at St. Mary's Orphanage, had come into the town that morning to collect food. Despite pleas from Mother Gabriel, the assistant superior at St. Mary's Infirmary, for her to stay at the hospital until the storm passed, Sister Elizabeth said that she had to return to the orphanage. She said that if she didn't return with the wagon of supplies, that the children would not have supper. St. Mary's Orphanage consisted of 2 large 2-story dormitories just off the beach behind a row of tall sand dunes that were supported by salt cedar trees. The buildings had balconies facing the Gulf. According to one of the boys at the orphanage, the rising tides began eroding the sand dunes as though they were made of flour.
Oh my gosh.
Soon the waters of the Gulf reached the dormitories. The sisters at the orphanage brought all the children into the girls' dormitory because it was the newer and stronger of the two. In the first floor chapel, they tried to calm the children by having them sing Queen of the Waves as the waters continued to rise. Taking the children to the second story of the dormitory, the sisters had Henry Esquire, a worker, collect clothesline rope. Again, they had boys and girls sing Queen of the Waves. One of the boys later said that the children were very frightened, but the sisters were very brave. Houses along the beachfront were lifted from their foundations and sent like battering rams into other houses. At the infirmary, the floodwaters filled the first floor. From the second-story balcony, the sisters pulled refugees in as they floated by and brought them into the overcrowded hospital. Almost every window in the facility was broken out, sending the wind and rain whipping through the building. At the orphanage, the children's sisters heard the crash of the boys' dormitory as it collapsed completely and was carried away by floodwaters. The sisters cut the clothesline rope into sections and used it to tie the children to the cinctures which they wore around their waists. Each sister tied to herself between 6 to 8 children. It was a valiant yet sacrificial effort to save the children. Some of the older children climbed onto the roof of the orphanage. Eventually, the dormitory building that had been the sanctuary for the children and sisters was lifted from its foundation. The bottom fell out, and the roof came crashing down, trapping those inside. Only 3 boys from the orphanage survived. William Murney, Frank Madera, and Albert Campbell. Miraculously, all 3 ended up together in a tree in the water. After floating for more than a day, they were eventually able to make their way into town, where they told the sisters what had happened at the orphanage. So one of the boys remembered a sister tightly holding 2 small children in her arms, promising not to let go. The sisters were buried wherever they were found, with the children still attached to them.
Oh my lord.
2 of the sisters were found together across the bay on the mainland. One of them was tightly holding 2 small children in her arms. Even in death, she had kept her promise not to let go. And ever since 1900, on September 8th, the members of the Congregation of the Sisters of Charity of the incarnate word sing an old French hymn, Queen of the Waves. And that is the story of the Galveston Hurricane.
That's so sad.
Yeah. It's pretty heavy stuff.
I sad.
In the 5th grade, I went on a field trip to look at, it was supposed to be about classic ship design and like old boats. But while we were there, they showed us like this movie. Well, like, yeah, it's a historical thing, but not like a movie, but like a black and white film talking about the hurricane.
Yeah.
I actually have postcards that are signed from that field trip that I still save to this day because I never sent them to anybody because I have no friends.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You mean besides us?
I can give you my address.
We need to talk to anybody.
So, anyways, comment your name below and your address.
Yeah, I was gonna say, send
Okay.
your address. If you
Our
want a
top
postcard.
Patreon gets a. I have friends; they love me. Anyways, no, they talked about that. Although going off of what you just said, I think the most chilling thing, and you want it to be a nice thing, and they want it to be this, like, oh, so, even in death. What if she died before the kids died?
And then they couldn't
Yeah.
get out of her grasp. Is that what you're saying?
And she was heavier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what scares me.
But also they were like
It's
tied
all
to
bad.
her, so
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
to rebound off of that into something lighter though, with the Galveston Walmart. What's to say? I'm sorry, and I'm not a nun. I'm certainly not a sister. But what's to say that Sister Judith doesn't want to play with Stretch Armstrong?
Oh, Lord.
You're assuming that these crying, screaming
could be.
children
Could
are
be.
stealing your toys.
Yeah.
Maybe Sister Judith wanted, the Jurassic Park 1 T-Rex with
Yeah.
the side that comes off showing the ribs.
maybe it's one of those dolls that are motion censored. So like this person's running by looking for a crying doll,
Yeah.
crying kid, I mean, and it's just a doll turning up.
Yeah.
Oh, we debunked it, you guys. There's no
Figured
such
it
thing
out.
as ghosts.
Welcome to Kenny's new segment where he debunks every horror thing.
Yeah, I remember when we did the ghost tours, the Houston downtown like ghost tour pub crawl thing. Johnny, our like guide, was talking about the Galveston Hurricane and about how the Spaghetti Warehouse had this sort of like dresser that held an urn.
Yeah.
That the urn was originally in that specific orphanage. They would just like cremate all of the orphans.
Yeah.
So like the Spaghetti Warehouse had this thing, and there was like the story of this family that went to eat, and this little girl kind of kept looking over at the dresser and looking over, and then she started like crying, and she told her mom, like, she was little. She was like, Mommy, I don't want to play with that little boy. That little boy keeps trying to get me to play with him, and I don't want to. He's scaring me. And there was like no little boy there.
Yeah.
So it is like I have not since our guide told us that the nuns tied children to them to save them. I have not forgotten that. I think about that every couple of days. Like legitimately, that has stayed with me since he said that.
That just
It's
seems like
so
a bad
dark.
idea.
They're just trying. I mean, what
yeah,
do you do?
I couldn't imagine trying to be in that
Yeah.
situation and
Yeah.
make that decision, game time decision,
Yeah. I mean, these children have lost their entire families. They're stuck here in this orphanage. These are the only people that are here to care for them,
Yeah.
Man, it's so freaking sad. Boo, I hate it.
It's heavy.
Sad.
But you know
What
what's
do you
not
have for
heavy?
us, McAnally?
Vampires!
I don't know how to segue out of that one.
Yeah.
So last week we talked about the origins and more of the kind of like the I don't know why I was going back into the Twilight voice. Last week we spoke about kind of the history of like what made the vampire and everything, and how several hundred different cultures had the same generic idea of this thing that really isn't good, really is creepy, and totally sucks blood. Going around and haunting everybody.
Or
usually.
life force.
And then, of course, the early Americans being like, them Chinese got the vampires too. The Jihan-Z. Nope, those are just hopping zombies, but you definitely like to call them vampires, so I guess we're vampires now.
Yeah.
I swear, America. So anyways, as promised, this week we're kind of going into what everybody recognizes as vampires. That was more of the weird, creepy, demon-like thing that you would see in the background that, for the most part, they usually sucked blood, but, it wasn't until, let's see, the 18th century, that they started, what if these things weren't demonish?
What if these things were hot?
Which I'm starting to see is a trend in everything we do these days. We run out of ideas and we start taking things like animals and other things.
Okay.
Why did you
trying
pause
to,
like that? Oh.
Why'd you look at me when you said that? I'm nervous.
But taking ghouls and creeps and saying, but what if?
Yeah.
So anyways, in the 18th century, we start getting some poetry written. Specifically some by John Polidori, titled The Vampire.
John Polidori.
Surprise.
Vampire.
It's vampires.
Okay.
If you were wondering what he's talking about, it's in the name.
Okay.
Although spelled Vampyre because he wanted to stand out. And
Vampire.
Yeah.
Good job, John. You did.
Hey, we're talking about him.
So, in Penny Dreadful, they kind of put a play on the classic vampire, the very creepy-ish looking anorexic thing.
Nosferatu.
Well, close. They had Varney the Vampire in 1847, which was kind of like a sideshow version of what you would imagine Nosferatu was like.
Oh yeah.
Very creepy, short, ugly, but they kind of almost made it humorous in a sense.
Oh.
And then, sure enough, here comes the big bad, Bram Stoker. With his,
Yeah.
Dracula.
The one, the only.
Count Chocula.
The one, the only.
Bram Stoker.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Yep.
Anyways, over time, people started putting together several different things. And it wasn't just one person. If you try to give Bram Stoker all the glory, shame on you. It's not... he gives you the children of the night and all that, hoo-hee. But, no, believe it or not...
Please.
I'm sorry.
All that
Sorry.
hoo-hee? I'm going to have to bleep that out.
Yeah.
Here's a quick true or false. I'm going to give you 3 attributes about vampires, and you tell me if Bram Stoker came up with it or if it was someone
else. Is it Bram Stoker or Bram Stoker?
Isn't it Bram?
It's Bram.
Bram.
And it's Stoker.
Okay.
I'm just slurring my words.
Wow, way to go.
Oops.
Sorry. So, Bram Stoker.
Yes.
Wait, we
Storker.
need to make sure that Izzy is listening in so that he can keep track of who's right.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think that only counts for his quizzes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I don't
this
know.
Isn't
By the way, shout out
quiz.
to Izzy. We got to see Izzy last night. Shout out to Izzy.
Side note to listeners, on both occasions that Izzy has been a guest on our show, he's quizzed us. And off the show, he actually tallied up the points.
You can find that the tally on our Facebook page.
Oh,
this is true.
Guess who won?
So
Not me.
Surprise. Is
Was
it
it
the one that is?
No, it's McAnally. Yeah, Izzy won all of them. I don't know.
Is it the big coward who does nothing but read Wikipedia all day? So much so that it gets him in trouble.
Oh.
So
Sad.
Let's see. I want to double check on my facts here.
You get in trouble with Wikipedia?
He almost got written up for it.
You're reading this too much.
Yeah.
Hey, Cody, we noticed that. You're reading a lot of articles about types of cheese. Can you please get off?
Types of cheese?
Yeah. Yeah. That's not good.
Dear.
Give us your true-false quiz.
Okay, so, right.
Yeah, what is it already?
So, garlic. Did Bram Stoker address the garlic being a weakness against vampires?
I feel like garlic being good for the heart was already a thing.
Oh.
Before that, like medically.
So if it's good for actual
Or for-
people, it must
yeah.
be bad for
Non-people.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think
So
that
I
it
think
wasn't him.
I don't think it was
Not him. Not him.
I think not
Say
him.
Not him. Okay. Congratulations. If you were listening to last week's episode, you already know that garlic was used
maybe that's why I knew that.
early on. Garlic was used back when
we
they
totally
still
listened
thought
to last episode.
they still thought they were just like zombies hopping up and eating family members.
Yeah.
They would put the cloves of garlic in their mouth.
And it would
Oh,
satiate
yeah,
them,
yeah,
so
yeah.
they
Yeah,
wouldn't
you
come
did
in.
say that.
Okay.
You said that for sure.
So,
Okay.
not Dracula, vampires in general.
Yeah.
Vampires being affected by sunlight. Bram Stoker?
That sounds like a Bram.
That sounds like
Yeah.
you need some drama, so you make it at night.
I feel like that was a symptom of a disease that nobles had. That
Okay.
when they
Oh,
thought
okay.
nobles were that sort of like the lore came from nobles being
Yeah.
strange and anemic, whatever, and
because
blah,
of
blah.
like their bloodline.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. I feel like that came.
Kind of like
About a
how
disease.
anemia was very rampant with the royal people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you?
So, final answer?
I'm going to say
Yes, no?
yes.
Yes.
I forgot the question.
Did Bram Stoker introduce the
I forget which way it
weakness,
was.
weakness to sunlight?
No, I don't think he introduced it.
No.
I'm gonna say yeah, he did.
Okay, yes, no. Ashley is correct.
Oh.
But the true reason why she is correct is because it was not introduced until much later with Nosferatu in 1922.
Really?
Oh.
Wow.
Nosferatu
Really?
was the one that was afraid of the
Interesting.
light.
Huh.
And then from that point on, they're like, yeah, vampires are afraid of the light.
So in like the original Dracula book, there's no mention of the sunlight thing?
So if you read the book, he actually courts, I forget the name of the lead female character that, if you watch the movie, is Keanu Reeves' love interest. He courts her as a young, seductive male in the broad daylight. He even has like this big wolf dog with him.
Huh.
Yeah, that's his whole shtick. It's never addressed in the book that he's afraid of sunlight. It's only until much
Interesting.
later. So,
Okay.
Wow.
yeah. Okay, so finally, the prolonged teeth. Was this something introduced strictly with Bram Stoker? Before? After? You decide.
After.
I think it was after. I think
yeah,
because
I
I
agree.
think of like Nosferatu with like the sharp.
Yeah, he truly looked like a man mixed with a bat.
He looked like a ghoul.
Okay.
Ghoul.
So
Yeah,
that
I
is a no.
Cool.
No.
I'm saying no.
No.
I would say it's before, because if eating people was already a thing.
Oh.
So you think no, but you think it was before.
Yeah.
No before and then 2 no afters.
Yeah.
After 2 no's in a row, obviously I'm going to put a yes in there. Bram Stoker introduced
Oh.
the sharp fangs.
So we're all wrong.
He was the one that...
Interesting. Okay.
So for today's
Interesting.
specific tally, it is wrong, and correct. Ashley
This
got one.
podcast.
I'm never coming back.
Oh no.
So, and then there's some other things like I was gonna make it longer, but I don't want to make my segment go too long. So, lightning round, immortality. Bram Stoker,
Yes.
wrong.
Who said it was a lightning round?
So the popped collar that's way up too high and sharp.
Yes.
Bram Stoker, no.
Yeah.
Dang it, Bobby.
It's actually that was introduced in a stage play.
Oh.
Let me think. Let's see.
Just the costumer.
And
That's it,
then
man.
Bram Stoker, last one, lightning round. The need for blood, or just eating people for the sake of eating people.
No.
I think he needed blood.
I'm gonna say he didn't introduce that.
Wait, I'm sorry.
So
Blood
okay,
or
okay.
just
did,
eating
did
people?
Bram
Is that the question?
Stoker introduce vampires needing blood for sustenance? Because before that, they just killed people? Or is that something that came later?
Later.
Wrong, correct. So that means that you two are tied. We're not doing a tiebreaker.
Okay.
Anyways, so yeah, Bram Stoker
You both
introduced
win.
Oh.
introduced
I'm a
the
wiener.
I have to suck them because it gives life.
Whoa.
Don't make that sound.
This is
Okay.
it's not that kind of podcast.
But, like I said, so Bram Stoker, he wrote Dracula in 1897. Well, rather, he published it then.
Wow.
But, as I had introduced as a tidbit at last week's end of my segment, there was actually a book that came before that was much more ignored because it had lesbianism as a...
Yeah.
And for that corrections corner that none of you are allowed to have because I'm doing it to myself, it was Carmilla. Carmilla was the name of the book.
That's all right. No one corrected you. It's okay.
Yeah. So, shout out to D.H. Friston, the original author, who got no credit because, they wrote about something that was just so ghastly. Let's see. I originally was going to do a whole lot about Carmilla, but we're going to keep it simple. Carmilla is a Gothic novella by Irish author, represent, Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu. That is not the name I just said. I said the name of the guy that did the illustration of Carmilla. Whoops.
No.
Good thing we're digging deeper, eh? Anyways, so it predated Bram Stoker's Dracula by 26 years.
Sorry.
Oh, wow.
Stroker. That's
Stroker.
just such a funny word.
The story is narrated by a young woman preyed upon by a female vampire named Carmilla, later revealed to be Mircalla. I think Carmilla was much more...
Okay.
Yeah. Mircalla, Countess Karnstein. Carmilla is an anagram of Mircalla.
Oh.
It's genius writing. The character is a prototypical example of the lesbian vampire expressing romantic desires towards the protagonist, as it is depicted as a trait of an antagonism in line with the contemporary views of homosexuality.
What a prototype, am I right?
I know, yeah. Oh, yeah.
The story is often
That old chestnut.
anthologized. Yeah, that's what it says.
Anthologenized.
Nope, you're wrong. And has
Just
been
needs to-
adapted many times in film and other media. Yep.
Okay, cool.
The vampire gets you in the end. Surprise. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so...
I think
Anyway.
that is incredible that the first real book that came out that with this romanticized image of a vampire was a lesbian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forget Dracula.
Yeah.
Let's think about this. Carmilla, is that her name?
Yeah, it's Carmilla.
Let's think
So
about
you're
Carmilla.
saying
Or Mircalla.
you're saying vampires have always been sexy.
Sexy.
So, well, as of 1872,
I mean, or is that just
yeah.
sexualizing lesbianism?
Yeah, I was gonna say, are we just associating lesbianism
Yeah.
It's
with
funny.
sexiness now?
Or was she just she actually
She just happened to be.
Yeah.
a sexually active, but mostly she was a vampire that had sexual interactions with her victims, right?
Probably.
Or is it just that we're sexual?
Or was it hey, I love to eat people's flesh. I watch this TV show, and I'm a lesbian, but that's
Yeah.
not how I define myself.
Yeah, exactly. Are we defining that for her?
I don't know.
And definitely considering it came out in 1871, I guarantee that
I'm
is
sure
not
it was
the
really
case.
woke. It was a really, really
Super
woke.
woke. novel.
So
Yeah.
woke. But so actually that kind of segues into my next little installment here, which I already memorized.
Okay.
I went back to my study guide from college. Thank you. Insert college here.
We already know where you went to college.
You said it, I think.
Sam Houston. Anyways,
multiple times.
So, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm expanding on and not just repeating last week's. But basically, what they spoke about and what was exemplified in Carmilla
Yeah.
was that the idea of vampirism being romanticized in books. One, the idea was when Bram Stoker specifically, and when Carmilla came out, they were trying to more so Bram than the other one. They were trying to scare people. Yes, that was the initial. That was the base level. But as they say in all your humanities classes and then all your English classes, they're like, but what did the author really mean? And it's for instance, Carmilla specifically, they were trying to sell you on the fact that, surprise, you're going to buy this book because one of two reasons. Either you're so, lesbians. Or you're like, oh, disturbing, disgusting. Of course it's horrifying. Yes, I'll buy the book because I want to show people how bad this is. But either way, they were making bank on the publication.
Maybe they're going for shock factor.
Yeah, well, I mean, exactly. It's what you see in a lot of media nowadays. We haven't changed much in these 200-something years. But, anyways, 300. I don't know. Centuries. But, so, in initially, in romanticizing them, it was a matter of turning us against ourselves, which was the idea of the original vampire, the weird anorexic demon-looking thing that would just jump up and, eat your family members because, the devil likes to do that.
Yeah.
In this way, by making it like, anybody could be a vampire, your next door neighbor could be a vampire. It's this whole, it's not always going to be the ghoul.
Yeah.
It's not always going to be the Nosferatu, whatever. And then they take it a step further by romanticizing it. And that's where, like, specifically Bram Stoker really, hits it out of the park because I specifically look at the specific film is called Bram Stoker's Dracula, which was the 1990, I'm not going to say because I don't want to be corrected, but it came out in the 90s.
Okay. Yeah.
The one with Keanu and Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Gary Oldman in that movie. But it was in doing what they were doing, they were making. Okay, so there's a couple of scenes in there specifically when he looks like a bat freak creature, and it's like a. You would imagine, at least outside looking in, that it's like a rape scene, and then upon closer inspection.
Okay.
No, it isn't. It's just a sex scene, and it's wild, and it's crazy, and it's because the idea of his novel was showing the disturbing, the disgusting side, the animalistic side of humans, and that's what, Dracula becomes, and the idea of the teeth, and this is something that I was hinting at, but I didn't want to, fully say, was, so in biting people, it's the penetration of people. It's the act of, doing something you don't come back from, basically, Sucking the blood is, in a sense, becoming one with somebody, taking their essence in, so on and so forth. So, yeah, it really becomes a big metaphor for sex, and it translates throughout the years. You get Stephanie Myers and her, sparkly vampires. Yeah. Because everybody needs a self-insert character here.
Hey, man, it works for some people.
And it did.
Like my mom.
Yeah, his mom has a Twilight tattoo.
Oh.
She does? I don't remember.
She has a vampire tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
And that was after she got really into Twilight.
She loves vampires.
But yeah, so there was this whole ongoing, it was like a 3-day class where they joked about the whole teeth, penis thing. It's just...
Yep.
Yeah, no, I've definitely had this discussion before in college classes where they...
Yeah.
And I remember students getting really upset about it because they had been, like, into vampire stuff because it was the time, and then, like, we're getting triggered from, like, past experiences that they had
No.
and, like, now associating it, with what's actually happening. That analysis is, like, it actually makes it more scary, I think, to think about vampires, especially like that they can be seen as such a romantic thing to a vast majority of people, but to people who have been traumatized by sexual assault, then it's like, oh man, this is, like, actually really scary.
The fictional vampire was the original gaslighter, basically.
Right.
So, and that's the thing, I specifically keep turning to that film. I mean, the book does great on its own, but the whole gig is that, like, it's almost like a psychosis thing. He when with Bram Stoker specifically, when they get bit, it drives them like crazy. And like, there's this whole scene in the end with Dracula's wives, and I won't even touch it. But well, it's like, so after he basically converts these women to vampirism, they're like. essentially, it's not funny. I'm sorry. They're biting Keanu, the main character, which I wish I remembered his name, but they're biting him like crazy. Like they're all over him. And it's supposed to be this like overly innate sexual thing, and he's like resisting because he wants to see his girlfriend. But yeah, he's still like, I gotta kill Dracula, but being pinned down by 3 people that are biting you.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's this whole thing, and that's why there's the whole symbolism of like, they bring in Van Helsing, who's just like, oh, holy symbols, you gotta fix them, you gotta throw the holy water on them, and then get the Dracula out of them. But yeah, so that's a little tidbit on the metaphors and symbolism and vampirism. And then one last thing, we're gonna go ahead and talk about the real actual dude, Vlad the Impaler, Vlad the Third.
Yay.
This guy is a real monster. And also proof that Wallachia exists, because let's be honest, if it weren't for him, would you know? Wallachia. No, you wouldn't. What have they done? Go on. Our listeners in Wallachia right now are sending me hate mail. So anyways, he was actually son of Vlad II, who was son of Vlad I.
Wow. You really did your research.
I did. And he was king of funny mustaches. Boy, was that thing funny looking.
Okay.
I was going to make a mustache joke about you, but I'm not going to do that.
I have a mustache.
I think it looks great. I don't want to make jokes about it
It
because I don't
hurts.
want you to think I don't like it. It looks great.
So anyways,
I
by
think
the
it
way,
looks great. It's
here's
the best your facial has ever
here's the
looked.
coolest thing. I have a picture here. That's his signature.
Wow.
They actually have his preserved signature.
Wow.
I don't know. It's just
so
something
long.
about the further proof of someone actually existing and how horrifying they are. I mean, like, you don't want to put him on a pedestal, but he physically put people on pedestals of spikes.
His
Through
signature
their
looks like
butts.
he was trying to take up extra space on an essay.
Yeah.
It really
like
does.
2
Yeah.
lines. It's so long.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it is a long name. Here's his actual full name. Let me pull it up here. He is Vlad Dracula Tepesh. Hold on. Voivode Prince of Wallachia is what his full signature would have read.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah. I don't know what Voivode is. Someone can school me on that later. So anyways, let me see if I can kind of sum him up pretty quick.
Basically, they killed, like, some people invaded and killed his dad when he wasn't there, and he heard about it, and he got really mad, and so he came back and took the throne, and then invited the people that killed his dad back for a feast, and then after the feast was over, he locked all the doors and then impaled all of them. Is that right? And
It
then
was
he
like
went on a
the original
rampage.
Red Wedding that's in the Game of Thrones.
Oh.
Yep.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, wow.
Is
that right? I mean, that's...
by now.
Well, that's... No, I'm never going to watch it.
Spoilers.
That's what I got from the Drunk History episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I mean, is that right? Like, what am I missing?
Yeah. All right. So,
where's the lie?
Hunyadi, the guys that, don't end up so well by the end of this, launched a military campaign against the Ottomans in the autumn of 1448. Vladislav accompanied him. Vlad broke into Wallachia with Ottoman support in October, but Vladislav returned, and Vlad sought refuge in the Ottoman Empire before the end of the year. So he was gone on war business.
Yeah.
Vlad went to Moldavia in 1449, or 1450, who knows. He invaded Wallachia with Hungarian support in 1456. Vladislav died fighting against him. Vlad, being a purge among the Wallachian boyars to strengthen his position. Okay. He came into conflict with the Transylvanian Saxons, who supported his opponents Dan and Basarb.
Dan. Freaking Dan.
And Vlad's illegitimate half-brother, Vlad the Monk.
Oh.
They named his half-brother Vlad. They just really like the name, okay? So stay with me here, because there's 50 of Vlads. Our Vlad, bad Vlad, plundered the Saxon village, taking the captured people to Wallachia, where he had them impaled, which inspired his conogram. Peace was restored in 1460. So the Ottomans, they were like, not cool, man. They ordered Vlad to pay homage to him personally, But Vlad had the Sultan's 2 envoys captured and impaled them too.
Oh my gosh.
In February of 1462, he attacked the Ottoman territory, massacring tens of thousands of Turks and Bulgarians.
Yeah.
You want to guess what happened to them?
Oh, yep.
They got impaled.
It was like a wasteland
Literally.
of impaled people.
Like, as far as the eye can see. Imagine, if you will, if you're a nerd, the Kingdom Hearts Keyblade Graveyard. the Keyblade Graveyard, but it's just people on spikes. It's lovely.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it.
So Vlad was like, why
I
stop?
refuse.
I have no
Why
basis
stop
for
here? He went after his younger brother and then also attempted to capture the Sultan during the night of the 16th of June, 1462. So, some of the facts, so like, it could have been this year, could have been that year, but for some reason they knew the day here. The Sultan and the main Ottoman army left Wallachia. They were like, you know what?
We're up.
Half of our dudes are hanging in your front yard.
Yeah.
We're good. If Vlad went to Transylvania to seek assistance, he didn't want them out. But guess what? Surprise! When he left his land and went to Transylvania, they're like, "You crazy!" and they had him imprisoned. Vlad was held in captivity from 1463 to 1475. During this period, anecdotes about his cruelty started to spread in Germany and Italy. He was released at the request of Stephen III. He fought in the army against the Ottomans because they were like, well, let's see.
Yeah.
Who's killed the most Ottomans here? Maybe it's the guy who keeps putting their children on spikes. Let's see. Finally got Vlad's brother to flee. Vlad was killed in battle before January 1477. Books describing his cruel acts were among the first bestsellers in German-speaking territories.
Murderinos have been around forever.
Popular stories suggested that Vlad was able to strengthen central government only through applying brutal punishments. You want to guess which ones? And similar views were adopted by most Romanian historians, who found out a lot of people don't fight back against you when you put your neighbors on spikes.
Yeah.
Vlad's reputation for cruelty and his patronymic inspired the name of the Count, Dracula.
Okay.
That guy. Let me just
Yes.
pull up here.
I played Castlevania. I know.
Let's see. Stories about Vlad's brutal acts began circulating during his lifetime. After his arrest, courtiers of Matthias Cornvius promoted their spread. Basically, people were like, ain't much going on in Wallachia. We're not that popular. But we got this crazy guy with a castle, and he keeps killing people and putting them in his front yard, so... Maybe that'll bring in the tourists.
It's such a like great metaphor for the actual attention we pay to vampires. Can I read? You mentioned Polidori earlier.
Yeah.
Can I read a piece of his poem about vampires?
Oh, please do.
This is the same thing. It says, his peculiarities caused him to be invited to every household. All wished to see him, and those who had been accustomed to a violent excitement and now felt the weight of ennui were pleased at having something in their presence capable of engaging their attention. In spite of the deadly hue of his face, which never gained a warmer tint, either from the blush of modesty or from the strong emotion of passion. Though its form and outline were beautiful, many of the female hunters, after notoriety, attempted to win his attentions and gain at least some marks of what they might term affection. So it's like, you love it even though you're terrified of it.
Yeah.
Oh man,
it's the Hannibal effect. It's almost charming in a sense. It's like, well, he's our guy.
Yeah.
I mean, proud Wallachians here. Just don't let your dog poop on his lawn and you're good.
That's true.
Not much of a talker, by the way. They surprise.
he was an impale first.
Oh yeah, for sure.
His actions speak volumes.
He's like, I have ways of making you talk. Puts a spike through a guy. He's like,
oh man.
Gosh dang it again.
Well, I'll just get another one.
This will work eventually.
So yeah, Vlad the Impaler. Vlad Dracula Tepesh went on to inspire Vladimir Tepesh, the Castlevania character, which is Dracula. I only hint at it because one, I love the series so much, and it's almost parallel history to our history. Just excluding a basically awesome magic family of vampire killers. You You got Van Helsing, but Van Helsing is old and kind of sucky.
It's just one man.
He's just like,
Just a dude.
I got a cross. How about a buff, barbarian dude that breaks down your door and throws morning stars in your face? I'd trust him more than I would trust an old man with a cross.
Everyone in that family's so buff.
So buff. They're born buff.
Not a buff.
They have
Perfect genes.
They have to be.
Do you have anything that you wanted to share? Or should we jump into...
No, yeah, go for it.
Okay. So I have one listener story, which is awesome. It's a long one, which is awesome.
Yes.
Okay, sweet. So this is from our friend Rory.
Yeah.
Rory sent in another email. We're really excited about it.
Gory Rory.
Okay, it says, hello again, guys and gal. Capitalized gal, but not guys.
Rip.
Thank you.
That's okay.
I'll be here till Friday. I was at work. He said I was at work again, listening to SA,IH, which is awesome. Awesome. And I must admit, I did not think I would make an appearance in episode 9 in that creepypasta.
Yeah.
Rory is not a common name, but it is the exact kind of name you would expect to find in a creepypasta. Kind of cool.
True fact.
He said, and you guys are really getting me in trouble here at work. I keep busting out laughing like an idiot at my desk. He says, I'm running out of excuses. Mac, your wedding dream, as sad as it was killing me in laughter. But he says, but you have been doing very good, Mac. I only have 6 things for correction corner this time. He says, just kidding, I don't have anything.
Rip.
Although, also in episode 9 and 10, you reminded me about a haunted mine that I went in.
Ooh,
I kid you not. I cannot believe I forgot.
Oh my god.
What the heck, dude? Okay, this story is wild. All right. Okay, so here we go. The mountains of California and SoCal are just riddled with mines. They're everywhere. Most of them just go 50 feet or so into the side of a mountain, so not super deep, but just deep enough for it to be super dark at the back and probably inhabit a couple of bats. So the haunted mine that I went to was an abandoned silver mine. I think I was in Lake Arrowhead, California. It was about a mile and a half hike up a mountain trail to get up to the entrance of the mine. I will try to find the name of it so you can look at it on Google Maps or something. Anyways, the entrance was blocked up by some large bars going horizontally, but there was just enough space above the top bar to squeeze through.
Nice.
Yeah, that would have deal breaker
Especially
for me.
for Rory. Like,
Yeah,
you could
yeah,
definitely
true,
do that.
man. Deal breaker for me.
He would do that in high school.
What do you mean?
The cage behind the
To get to the catwalk?
Rory is the one
Yeah.
that taught me. He's like,
Really?
you gotta climb up here
yeah.
and squeeze in there.
He showed me how to do it too.
Okay, let's see. There was a group of us, about 8 20-year-old kids who had no idea what we were doing. One of the guys with us brought along some rope and climbing gear, and I'm so glad he did. I'll tell you why in a minute.
Oh gosh.
Oh, goodness.
I like that sentence. I'll tell you why in a minute. So we get in this mine. We brought our flashlights and climbing gear, and that was about it. We were pretty ill prepared for the experience we were about to have. I kind of wish we had the PKE meter from Ghostbusters, because I bet it would have been going bananas. So we get in, and in just a minute of walking down this dark cave, it gets dark. A shade of dark that I never thought could exist. There were a couple of moments when we turned off all our flashlights, and I could not believe it. It was creepy how dark it was. Something about being in the bowels of the earth that just makes it so unnaturally dark. It's hard to explain if you haven't experienced it yourself. So we go wandering around through this cave. It wasn't long before we came to up to a vertical shaft going almost straight down into the seemingly endless pit.
Wow.
No sight of the bottom. It was pretty wild and clear to see why this mine was blocked off. It would not have been hard for someone to fall into this pit without even knowing it was there. So my buddy got his climbing gear, tied one piece of rope to a chunk of metal, and we decided to go down. I offered to rappel down first. This is wild to me. I just had no idea Rory was like into this.
Into dying.
Yeah, being so cool with it, man. I could not wait to see where it went, if it went anywhere. I am a treasure hunter at heart, and I had heard stories of old prospectors stashing their is it caches?
Yeah.
Caches of
Yeah.
precious metals in places, and then getting murdered by robbers trying to steal it.
Oh my gosh.
But their gold,
Maybe I
is-
could be that robber.
but their gold or silver is stashed away in a location taken with them to their graves. So I tied a quick bowline loop on the rope. Boy Scouts came in handy that time.
I just did the Eagle Scouts motion at you,
real
Rory.
serious. And slowly lowered myself down. It did not go down as deep as I thought it would, about 40 feet maybe, which is still
Wow. That's long.
so
Yeah.
many feet.
Yeah.
I disconnected and started looking around. There was a couple of really old wooden boards that crossed a chasm about 20 feet wide. I felt like Indiana Jones or something. These boards were really old and everything was damp and wet and covered in mud. I tested the boards and they felt solid enough, so I carefully walked across, trying not to slip and fall to my death. I got across the abyss and there was another opening into a tunnel. When I got across, the others were starting to come down too. I had a weird feeling there. I looked around the area and you can tell that no one had stood where I was standing for a very long time, possibly since the 1800s when the mine was in full swing.
Wow.
I made it my goal to try to get to places that I didn't think anyone had been to in a very, very long time, or maybe never even left after dying there.
Oh.
You madman.
Oh my lord. Okay. Miners died in that mine all the time. The environment was incredibly dangerous. That was apparent within minutes of being in there. It was functional for decades, and there were probably more deaths there than were reported.
Rory. If you are a ghost writing this, you have to tell us, or it's entrapment.
You have to.
You have to tell us.
Legally, you have to tell us.
Treasure?
As far as paranormal experiences go in this mine, okay, I just want you to prepare yourselves.
I'm
I
so
want
ready.
you to prepare yourselves. As far as paranormal experiences go in this mine, there was a couple of moments that occurred in there. There was one particular cavern that we went in. It looked like there was a collapse that had happened at the entrance of it. We had to squeeze into a super narrow passage to get in.
No.
We got in, and it opened up to a maze of passages that were all held up by ancient beams, all soaked with earthy moisture. Sorry, I already read this email. Now I'm just getting really anxious because I know what's happening. Once we got into where we could stand, we noticed when we flashed our lights at the wall, it shined with a glittery sparkle.
Ooh.
For all we knew, that glitter in this wall could have been what dozens of men had died trying to find and extract. The air in this area was dense and heavy. Each breath I took in was full of humidity. It wasn't very cold in that mine, but in this room I got the chills. I'm not sure why, but we decided to turn off all the lights. When we did, the extreme darkness enveloped us. Naturally, we all went silent, overcome with the black that overcame us. The silence was then broken. You okay?
Yeah.
Okay. The silence... this sentence is crazy. The silence was then broken. It sounded like in the distance we could hear an echo of a yell. It was faint at first, but it grew louder and louder as we waited there. Do you guys hear that? I asked. No one answered as we listened more intently to the sound. It went from one faint voice to a chorus of distinct voices all echoing through the chambers. We weren't imagining this, even though at first I thought I might have been. After intently listening for about a minute, one of my buddies flicked on his flashlight and the voices disappeared with the blackness that surrounded us. We marveled a little more at the walls peppered with shiny particles, but from here, our adventure took a slightly different feel. We were now primed to look for the unnatural. Here we go.
Ooh.
We were in this mine for hours. There were two other particular rooms that we went into that were different from the rest. Perhaps the location of the death of a wandering spirit. One room we entered was not necessarily cold, but your body reacted as if it were cold. It was no different in appearance to many of the others we went in, but for some inexplicable reason, the room made the hair on your arms stick up. My heart started racing for no reason. Something was not right in this section of the mine. I flashed my light around the room to see if there was a reason this could be. I saw nothing until I flashed it to the other side of the cavern, to the corridor that led out, and I kid you not,
No.
I saw something move out of the way of my light.
Oh!
It was big.
Goodbye.
Bigger. It was big. Bigger than anything that could be living that deep in the earth. What I saw was impossible. There should not be, could not be anything there. But I saw it.
Oh.
My options were to investigate further and follow it or go back. To this day, I regret it, but I turned back and went no further.
No, you don't.
I was too freaked out.
No, you don't.
I was too freaked out and was not ready for what I might find. But needless to say, after that sight, I was pretty rattled and about ready to get out of there. My flashlight was noticeably dimmer than it was when we went in. My time was running out.
Yeah.
As I described before, this mine was huge. We were wandering around for 4 hours at this point. We were marking our path very carefully because it was a maze down there. There were a few times that we got a little nervous when we couldn't find our breadcrumbs. We marked the walls as we went through the different paths, but when we couldn't find our markings at one point, we were thinking little goblins or David Bowie we were changing our marks without us knowing. Labyrinth reference. I love it. Keep it up. I'm scared. Okay. At one point, we had the classic moment that you find in movies where we were all sitting around together and arguing about where we came from and which way the exit is. But it was actually pretty scary until we found our mark after all. It just looked different coming from the other direction. From the other dimension.
Oh.
On our way out, we saw one more shaft that went up, not down, and I, being a treasure hunter at heart, really wanted to go up and see if it led to a secret chamber where all the precious ore was stashed. We couldn't use the rope, so I had to free climb up this vertical shaft. It was supported by beams, and there was a really old ladder that was mostly decayed and unusable. The whole thing was wet and slippery, but I was dying to get up there. That's a good turn phrase. So I started climbing up and using the wide beams for support. It was a pretty high climb, maybe 30 feet. About halfway up, my flashlight started flickering, and I did not have a spare. I twisted the battery compartment to try to improve the connection. It was still flickering, but getting dimmer by the minute. Then it turned off. Okay, so he says I was left 15 feet up, climbing to a soaking wet beam, covered in mud in this pitch blackness. There was no way I could have gotten down without light. It was hard enough with light. I called to my buddies, but nothing. As I stood there clinging for my life, I heard it again.
Oh.
That faint echo of a voice, like someone in trouble, yelling out for help. I thought I was losing my mind. It was getting louder. I heard the other voices joining it, just like last time. It was getting louder. It was impossible to tell where it was coming from, but I think it was from up above, where I was trying to get to. What was up there? Then I heard a voice below. It was one of my buddies checking to see if I was dead. Just as his voice broke through the air, the echo stopped and my flashlight flicked back on. You see crap like that in the movies, but it was wild. Either a big coincidence of the batteries correcting a broken circuit as I shifted, just as the voice of my friend reached my ears, and just as the paranoid oral hallucinations were overcome by the relief of salvation, or there was something supernatural in control of the situation. It all seemed too unreal and orchestrated for me to think that it was all coinciding events occurring by chance. He shined his light up at me and gave me some extra support as I lowered myself down cautiously, step by step. Once again, I did not press forward to that upper level and decided that we had better just cut our losses and get out before something really bad happened, or someone got hurt, or someone found something that should remain unfound. So we eventually got to the opening of the mine and squeezed out. We were all filthy, covered in mud, soaked to our knees, as we had to trudge through some still water that collected in parts of the cave. We hiked back down to the mountain, feeling like we had just done something really cool, which we did, but I couldn't help wondering what spirits may reside down there. What happened to the disembodied voices that forever yell for help only in the dark? And what would it take for them to be found by the rescue team they need to finally leave their burial in the warren of a mine. And what on earth was that thing that I saw flash by in the corridor? And what would I have discovered if I had followed it? So many questions I have, I may never know the answer to. But that was my experience in a haunted mine. Sorry it was so long. Again, never apologize for a long story. That was gorgeously written. Sorry it was so long, but I thought you guys would like it. I had a lot of experiences in different mines, but this was by far one of the craziest.
Wow.
I will attach some photos of the experience for your viewing pleasure. It might help show some of the parts that I was trying to describe. You guys are doing great. Keep it up. I look forward to every episode and even got my wife, Kaylee, hooked. That's amazing. If you want to give her a quick shout out, that would be awesome. Yeah, shout out to Kaylee. We only met you once at
my birthday party.
Right? Yeah, but yeah.
Where he was literally just like, "Hey man, here's my wife."
Yeah, we were like, "What the heck?" Anyway, yeah, we would love to get together with you guys. He says, "I think she may have only met you guys briefly a few years back, and I know she wants to know you better. Also, I don't think you guys have seen my daughter Hazel." Yes.
Only in pictures.
Yes.
Yeah,
thanks for the invite to your Christmas party. I will do everything in my power to get there.
Yeah.
Thanks again, team. Can't wait to hear the next episode.
When did he? Wait a second. When did you receive this?
Like last week. Yeah, the 13th. So last week.
That was crazy.
Yeah. So basically, he said, "P.S. attached photos, hopefully in order." And literally, he gave us 16 photos and then gave a description of every single one.
You gonna airdrop?
Yeah, we can airdrop.
What irks me the most is that like that's almost like perfectly described. Like you could take his experience and make like an indie horror game, and it would fit it too horribly well. Yeah. Like the whole literally that is a concept right there.
Seriously.
The longer your light stays off, the more voices are calling for help.
Yeah.
And to me, it's not. I mean, obviously, like it's more. If you accept supernatural instances to be a possibility in this happenstance, it would be more likely, obviously, that it's the dead miners. But like, you take it a step forward in the horror direction, and in my head, it's that whatever this thing was that you saw, lunging away, is what was making those noises.
Right. Yeah. Or responsible for the people who were screaming.
Oh, come on. Don't make the connections that I already shouldn't have been making. Also, that is very much just... You don't think of mines with that, the grating. Oh my god!
Yeah, that's the hole they slipped through.
Yeah, they slipped through that.
Holy cow!
At least I can rest knowing that I wouldn't fit.
Oh Lord!
You're gonna have to go on without me.
Yeah,
right,
sorry, guys.
I'm gonna read some of these descriptions, and then I'll show you guys. The outside of the mine where the ore was refined. Warning sign outside the mine. Entrance of the mine, we had to squeeze in at the top. It was tight. Looking up from the bottom of the rappel, a couple of converging cart tracks, covered in water, and an old ladder going up a shaft, some horizontal beams across a deep chasm, some beams holding up the ceiling, some are broken, an unexploded old stick of dynamite. I was afraid to use the flash on the camera. Me sliding down a chute, another cavern with some beam scaffolding, some crazy corridors, the collapsed area. We had to squeeze through to get to the sparkly section. I tried to get a picture of the shiny walls, the exit from the inside, and the sunset when we got outside. Wow. Okay, hopefully we can see some of these.
Oh.
Wow.
Heck no.
Wow.
Heck no.
What? Oh, I can't see all of these.
Dang.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll get with Rory and see. We saw like the first 3.
Still spooky.
Dude, like
That's bananas.
This story is insane. Rory, thank you so much for sharing that with us. That is just crazy. Just so crazy.
Yeah.
The voices thing, that just like...
And it's one of those things.
That's insane to me.
It's one of those things that if you read this online, it's like obvious creepypasta.
Yeah.
But I know you.
Yeah.
You hunted in the witchy woods of Newport to look for hidden treasures and buried 4-wheelers. I know for a fact you squeezed in there. You're a psycho.
Yeah.
It's cool too that it's like there's other people there with you to experience it too. It's not just something you're alone and you could think like this was probably didn't actually happen.
Yeah, exactly.
You can
That's
explain
the thing.
it away, but there's 7 other people with you.
Yeah, can you imagine you're all 8 people all together and it goes dark and you're just like hearing those chorus?
That's
Like
gonna mess me up.
that is freaking insane.
Yeah.
We do have one, not a corrections, but like Drew messaged, and the dog that attacked Brody, his name is Franklin.
Franklin.
Yeah, Izzy remembered it last night.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So shout out to Drew again.
Devil dog.
Sweet. Well,
Jeez.
this was awesome. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do
thank
you-
you guys for having me.
Is there anything else? Like, do you have anything you want to talk about? Or anything? All right.
I wish I could remember I remember having, because Brody and I would talk about, we would go to like 5 a.m. Bible study classes. And then we would talk about like lucid dreaming on the way to school, like right afterward.
Boy.
Yeah.
And I don't remember those conversations very well, and I don't remember any of the dreams I had. I know I had them, and I was keeping a journal of them.
Yeah.
I actually looked when I was at my house in
Oh, really?
Crosbyton. I looked for my old journals, and I couldn't find them.
Oh, that's alright, bud.
But yeah, I wish I could remember those dreams because lucid dreaming is pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's insane.
Yep.
I'm never gonna do it. I'm not interested. I'm already scared.
Yeah, don't.
Scared. Cool. You guys got anything else?
No.
Cool. Awesome.
That's
Well,
about it.
thank you guys for joining us, and thanks for subscribing. Thanks for being our buds. Again, you can find us on YouTube, on Stitcher, on not SoundCloud. We hate SoundCloud. No offense, SoundCloud,
Wait,
but
I thought we were on something.
no, Spotify.
Spotify.
Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, Podbean. Come hang out with us. Subscribe. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook. Join our forum. Let's talk about some spooky stuff. You can email your paranormal stories to anywayit'shaunted@gmail.com. And I would love to share your experience and scare ourselves before we go to bed.
Yeah.
Because that's when we record, is at nighttime.
Oh yeah.
We sure do.
Before we go to bed. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, stay spooky, my dudes.
Yep.
Imagine, if you will, a podcast recorded in Texas.
Is that it? What?
Kenny Chilton.
Good night, everyone.
Sweet dreams.